To those of you who are at home and watching us by stream today, I offer to you our prayer and hope that you will get better and be able to be with us. You're very much missed. Yeah, I have drawn a blank. There we go. Yahweh is great, and I've had a great week this week. Most High is allowing me to know what He is doing. He's doing some awesome stuff. I reopened my Facebook page this week, and got a lot of new friends. I've been in communication with them, and they've seen some things that I've posted, and in their response to me, I've responded back to them very Hebraically, and some of them are very intrigued and want to learn this way of the Hebrew life. So, I'm excited about it. Anytime I have an opportunity to help Israel understand the dynamics of who they are, that excites me. That excites me. Well, we're going to talk about mitzvot today, but we need to understand, there's some things we need to understand about what's happened to us. And I talk about this often, but I'm not sure people grasp it and understand it. We are in this exile because our ancestors fail to follow the mitzvot of the Most High. That's why we're here. And there's another aspect that our people need to understand, because we come out of an idolatrous denomination. Okay? We are not a denomination. Hebrew Israel is not a denomination. You can't even find us written in the book of denominations. I have a book of denominations. We're not listed. And that's a good thing, because we're not a denomination. Every denomination can be traced back to its origin and its father. The Latter-day Saints can be traced back to the individual who started the denomination, the Latter-day Saints, and the name of the person who started that denomination. Seventh-day Adventists can be traced back to the person in who has started the Seventh-day Adventists. When did it start? Oh, it started in the United States. The United States is a baby compared to what the Most High has put in place. So every denomination, if we look at the Kojic, Church of God in Christ, you can go into the book of denominations and they'll tell you who the founder of is of the Church of God in Christ. It's a denomination. If you go in and you want to know about the Southern Baptists and you want to know about the Baptists and the split, the Book of Denominations tells you the name of the person who started that denomination. So all denominations are man-made. So people ask you, well, what denomination are you? Your response should be, I'm not of a denomination. That's not what the Most High gave to Hebrew Israel. He didn't give us a denomination. He gave us a way of life. These words I'm speaking to you, he says over and over again, shall be a way of life to you. So Hebrew Israel, we do not have a man. There's no man. There's nothing bleeding blood that dies is our founder. The Most High said to us, and he says it over and over again, and here in Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 8, he says, for I am a father to Israel. Ephraim is my firstborn son. So when we talk about Ephraim is also synonymous with Yisrael. We go back to the birth of Ephraim and Manasseh in the land of Mitzrayim to Yaakov, and we find that that he was the first son blessed of Joseph. Joseph's firstborn son, Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, and Ephraim was the first born that was blessed by his grandfather Jacob, and he says, he shall be to me as one of my sons. So Ephraim, in the context of when it's written, is synonymous with Israel. So he says, I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn son. That's talking about Israel. There are things that are germane to us that come out of Scripture. And Scripture is the basis of which that we know and understand everything about our relationship with the Most High. The Most High is our King. The Most High is our Savior. The Most High is our Redeemer. He is our rock, as spoken in the book of Yeshayahu, which is Isaiah. I think it starts around chapter 44, 45, or thereabouts. So we know that everything that we're connected to is the Most High. I'm trying to find something here. Now, the other aspect which you know, and you've heard this over and over again, and one of the things that I'm trying to help people to understand about this man thing is that the Most High also says in Jeremiah, which he repeats in Torah. So the prophets, when we read the prophets reiterate what the Torah says. And so the Most High speaks these words in Jeremiah 31:29. He says, the fathers have eaten sour grapes. And when he talks about sour grapes, he's talking about the fathers, our ancestors, have sinned. Sour grapes is a metaphor for sin and wickedness. And the children's teeth are set on edge, meaning that what the fathers have done before have become a part of and an extension of their offsprings and their children. Because what we do, what do children do? Children usually follow the pattern of their parents. And so with that being the case, we understand, as the last time that I taught, I explained to you how being Torahless, or what the New Testament refers to as being lawless, the aspect of lawlessness is the aspect of being Torahless. And being Torahless is the mind of the Most High, is wickedness. So when we sin, the violation of Torah brings about things that are germane to what sin is. In the book of John, 1 John, 2 John, I think it is, he said that being lawless is sin. So if lawless is sin, and lawless in the Greek maps back to Torah, then being Torahless, you see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? So that therefore, when we miss the mark, we sin, we're Torahless. Now, with that being the case, people are still trying to be saved by the blood of a man. That doesn't work with the Most High. In Jeremiah, he says, rather, each will die for his own sin. So if we sin, we're going to die for our own sin. But that's a repeated text that comes out of Torah also. So people have to understand the difference between that which is holy, that which is, well, that's another word that we got to talk about. That falls. It sounds harmless, doesn't it? Holy sounds harmless, but it's a idolatrous term, and I'm going to explain that to you on another day for another conversation. Now, let's talk about Israel and these mitzvahs. And we're going to stay in Jeremiah for a minute. He says, "This is what Yahweh says, who gives the sun as light for the day, who ordained the laws for the moon and stars, to provide light for the night, who stirs up the sea until its waves roar. Yahweh Sabaoth is his name." Then he says, now he stated the law. This is the law of how everything exists in the Shemayim and in the Eretz in the day and night. Okay, that's the law that he has established. He goes on to say, "If these laws leave my presence, says Yahweh, then the offspring of Israel will stop being a nation in my presence forever." You get that? You get that? Hold on to that point. Then he goes down and he says, "This is what Yahweh says. If the sky above can be measured and the fountains of the earth be fathomed, then I will reject all the offsprings of Israel for all that they have done, says Yahweh." Now, to explain those two passages, and I've told you all this before, if Israel is not redeemed out of this exile, as the Most High has so promised that it would be and it would be done, if Israel is not redeemed, then guess what? Nobody gets redeemed. If Israel is not saved, and the word saved means delivered, but it's quantitative. It's quantitative. It's not like the Christian church. The Christian church says, "Well, I'm saved." Well, now, can you quantify that? What do you mean you're saved? Well, I'm saved. What do you save? What do you mean? Saved from what? Well, I'm saved from sin. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not saved from sin. And the reason why you're not saved from sin is because guess what you keep doing? You keep sinning. So you haven't been delivered from it. It's not quantitative. When the Most High uses the word saved or redeemed, it's quantitative that can be measured back to something that is factual and that is visual. Let's look at this from a historical point. The Most High says, I redeemed you out of Mitzrayim, or I brought you out of Mitzrayim with a strong arm. Okay? That's quantitative. We can prove it. Why? Because we have the evidence of something that took place and happened that's physical. So when the Most High says, I am going to redeem you out of your exile, I'm going to bring you out, means he's going to move us out of the nations that he has dispersed us, and he is going to bring us back to the place that he exiled us from. That's quantitative. So he says, now let's use another phrase. I'm going to deliver you. I'm going to deliver you from your enemies. Quantitative. Deliverance is the word that means save. I'm going to deliver you. So every time the Most High delivers us from something, it's quantitative. You can prove it. I delivered Israel from the hands of her enemies. Well, we look at text. Did he deliver them from the Philistines? Yes. Did he deliver them from the Assyrians? Yes. Did he deliver them from the Babylonians? Yes. So everything that he uses in terms of verbiage is quantitative that you can put your finger on, that's physical or that's visual. I'm saved. Well, what's the quantitative proof that proves that you're saved? You went to church? I gave my life to a man. Okay. What's still quantitative about that? Well, I gave my life to him because I believe that he died for my sins. Now you're talking about you believe something. I believe something that is not quantitative. You follow the line? I can't prove it. I'm going on the basis of what somebody told me. And that's the reason why I coined a phrase, who told you that? See, who told you that? And whoever told you, what's the quantitative proof of what's being said? Now, I've come into a whole different dynamic in relationship to the Most High. And I've come into the dynamic and the understanding based on something that's quantitative. Okay. I no longer believe that there is a Most High. I no longer believe that, and I can't use the term God because the term God is associated with heathen deities, and it has no quantitative association with the Most High. So, but for the majority of people, because they don't know any better and they haven't been taught, they talk about God. I don't talk about God anymore. Matter of fact, I'm going to start spelling it. I ain't going to say it. I no longer believe. I now know. I know that there is a ruach, there is a dominant spirit in the universe, in the Shemaims, in the heavens, that is in control of all things. How do I know that? I know that because every time I wake up in the morning, I see the sun that's obedient to its creator. It rises in the west, in the east, it sets in the west, and then when it sets, it disappears and goes back to its place of origin. It's quantitative. It's quantitative that when I wake in the morning, I wake up and I have pneuma. I have breath. It's quantitative. Where did I get that breath from? Who gave it to me? That universal spirit that has made all things, that resides in the Shamayim, in the heavens. It's quantitative. I have my ability to move and to go about. He gives me the essence of a physical being to move and operate. How do I do that? It's quantitative. I do it because that spirit, that ruach that has created all things is moving in me to help me to do that. Not a man. Not a man. Man. It's quantitative. You ready to stand up? I'm quantitative in that when I look at me, now this is interesting. This is an interesting dynamic that the Most High spoke to me about this morning as I was awaking. He says, do you realize that I have taken something of a substance that's called dirt, dust of the ground, and I have created a man in my image and in my likeness from the dust of the ground. Okay. Now, when you look at you and you look at all the components that there are about you that cause you to function, your organs, all the things that make a body function and work come from dust. Now, I want you to wrap your head around this, okay? Wrap your head around this. Everything that makes you, that we're physically able to look at, that's quantitative, that is the creation of man, that is a creation of the spirit that resides in the Shamayim. He has taken something that is quantitative that you can go out in your yard and get. Okay? And you can mix it with water and you can mix it with a whole lot, but you can't make a human being out of it. But the Most High can take that substance of dust, of dirt, and form it into something and give it life and elasticity. Your skin, elasticity, your organs that function. And all of that that's been created, he has created. But when he takes pneuma away from you, breath, and he takes ruach, spirit, away from you, and you cease to function, all of this goes back to its original substance, which is dust. The only thing that's left are the bones. Come on, people. Who are we talking about? We're talking about our Elohim, our mighty one. Our mighty one is not God. The Christian church has taken the language of the Hebrew people, and they have coined this idea that El means God. But they don't know that God is associated, and its origin comes out of the substantive matter of something that is connected with that which is heathen. You following me? Now, if God is associated with something that's heathen, but the Ruach HaKodesh, the spirit that has created all things, can't be associated with that which is heathen. You follow all right? So since he can't be associated with that, I can't put that title on him. I can't speak about him in that context. And because I know that he has a name that's written in the scriptures, in the scroll, not translated, not written in your Greek-inspired Bibles, it's left out, it's not there, you don't know that what they have done, they have taken every context within the Hebrew scripture and they've given it a title. Lord, God, God. And in the Hebrew writings, they've given him the name Adonai because they believe that his name is too sacred to mention. But the problem with that is, if his name is too sacred to mention, we're stuck. Because he says, they that call up on the name of, in the Hebrew text, they that call up on the name of Yod-He Vav-He, which is Yahweh, shall be saved. But if you call him something else, guess what you're not going to get? You're not going to get saved. Therefore, now we get back to our opening discussion. People say, well, I'm saved. You can't be saved because you haven't recognized the name of the source that provides your deliverance. Because you are connected to a man who bleeds blood, who in real thought is nothing more than a demigod. So now, what's our problem? Our problem resides in the fact that we have a responsibility to to do to do this. Get my pen out here. We have a responsibility to learn these and to walk our life out according to them because they have not been done away with. They have not been dismissed. What are they? What are they? They are simply a way of conduct. They are a way of conduct for Hebrew Israel to function and to live by. If we do away with these, we've done away with our Constitution. We've done away with our preamble. We've done away with our instructions as to how Hebrew Israel is supposed to live. The nations can live any kind of way they want to. They can do whatever they want to. The Most High gave to Hebrew Israel laws, statutes, rules, and commandments by which to live by. And that's how we're supposed to live our lives. So we're not living by the rules of a denomination. Now, I'm trying to find something here I want to get to that's further in Jeremiah. I had it and don't know where I did with it. The Most High speaks to us and tells us in chapter 44 of Jeremiah and verse 23. And what's happening here in Jeremiah is that Israel has been carried off captive by Babel, the Chassidim, Babel, Nebuchadnezzar, written about in the book of Daniel. They've been carried off captive. But here's the word that the Most High says to us. He says to us, and let me read. I'm gonna start at verse 20. Then Jeremiah said to all the people, to the men, the women, and all the people who had answered him back, the incense you offered in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem, you, your ancestors, your kings, your leaders, and your people of the land, Yahweh kept remembering. Now here's a key that you have to pay attention to in here. Yahweh kept remembering. Okay? Do you remember? How much do you remember? Do you remember how many times you have violated the Most High? Do you remember how many times you have made him angry? Have you been counting? Okay. No, you haven't. But he says here, where'd my verse go? You, Yahweh, remembers. And what he remembers He remembers and takes note, the text said, of the insults until he no longer is able to bear it. Now, over in the book of uh, Chronicles, in Chronicles, he'll write these words to Israel. He says, "You have left me with no other remedy." In other words, I've been warning you, I've been telling you, I've been telling you, I've been telling you, and you haven't paid attention. So now you've left me with no other remedy. How many of you have lived with your parents and they have told you to do, I told you to do this, right? I told you to do this. And I told you to do this. I told you to do this. And you don't do it. Didn't I tell you to do this? Yeah. And you didn't do it. And then pretty soon, and they say, now, and she told you, they tell you first, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to do A. And they give you grace, give you an opportunity to do it. And they come back, did you do it? No. Did you do it? No. Okay. Now what have you done? You've left me with no other remedy that now I'm going to have to bring up on you what I pose to bring up on you because you're not listening and you're not doing. So now I have to punish you. That's the Most High. So he says, Yahweh remembering and taking note of this until he could no longer bear it. So evil and so detestable were your deeds. Well, what's evil and detestable about Israel's deeds? Well, he says, it is because you have offered incense, sinned against Yahweh, watch out now, did not listen to what Yahweh said. Now, let's stop there for a minute. People are not listening to the Ruach. They're not listening to the spirit of all things that is speaking. The problem that resides there is because the Most High is a spirit. What does he have to have? What does he have to have? He has to have a body of a person to use as his voice to speak forth to his people. And the reason that exists is because when the Most High got ready to talk to Israel, which he did when he gave them the 10 Commandments, not the 10, but when he gave them the commandments on Mount Sinai, he came out on the mountain and he spoke. He spoke. He spoke. And you got to get this. You got to see the fear that hit people. If you're standing around a mountain and that mountain starts to smoke and the Most High is speaking and the mountain starts to shake and fire starts coming out of it, and you see pregnant women dropping and giving babies, and you're blown back at a major G-force at the voice of the Most High, huh? That would scare you. That would scare you, wouldn't you? And the thing that you would say, hey, Mashe, uh, because Mashe is in communication with that spirit. Will you go back to him and tell him we don't ever want to hear that voice again? So what the Most High knows, he knows that the created man does not have the capability to hear him speak like we're talking. And when he spoke on Mount Sinai, when he gave them the commandments, he spoke in all 70 languages, 72 languages. So all the nations heard what was going on. Scared them to death. So now the Most High is not a physical being that people can see. So he uses vessels like people to speak through for him. Notice the text, when we read the prophets, he says, the Most High said, he speaks to the prophet, in this case is Jeremiah. He speaks to Jeremiah, and he says, Jeremiah, you speak to Israel and tell them what I'm saying. So he's speaking to them. And he's saying, it is because you offered these things, and you did not listen to what Yahweh say, and now watch this, and did not live by his Torah. Those. That's the Torah. The mitzvahs are the Torah. The history is not the Torah. The mitzvahs are the Torah. Regulations and instructions that this disaster has befallen you as it is today. We are in this exile because our forefathers did not do this. That's why we're here. That's why we're hated. That's why nobody, we have become a byword in the eyes and the mind of people. They don't want it, they don't like us. They hate us. And here's the interesting thing about this, okay? Our people don't know that you can't legislate against the Most High. See? I mean, it's noble. It's noble to go and want to have a parade and a march, and let's go to the White House and let's do this and let's do that. That's noble. But that's not going to change the outcome that has been spoken out of the mouth of the Most High. Here's the resolve. There is a resolve. But when we read Jeremiah, we got a problem with people. Guess what they don't do? They don't listen to the Most High. I said, oh, we will, but we don't listen to the Most High. So the issue is, if the Most High said it's going to be A, you can't legislate it away. If he said your way in this exile is going to be what it is, it's going to be what it is. And I want to say to those of you that may be watching this today and be watching on our YouTube stream, I want you to go to Devarim. That's Deuteronomy chapter 28. I say this over and over again. Start at verse 15 and read down through verse 69. And then tell me who those people are that he's writing about. Because it's not the Ashkenazi Jews. They are not you. They own banks. They control the entertainment industry. They are in control of a whole lot of things that you are not in control of. And secondly of all, they don't even like you. What am I talking about? There's a people, and it's Hebrew Israel that these are written to. Let's get to it for today. We're going to start here in Vayikra, chapter number 7, verse 23. We're going to talk about things. And as we talk about these things, these mitzvot are things that are to help us as people live and survive in the Eretz, the land that the Most High has given us to be able to live and be healthy. One of the reasons we're not healthy is because we have failed to follow the Most High's dietary laws. And I hear it, and we're going to have barbecue. What are we going to do? Well, so-and-so barbecue some good pork ribs. Well, the Most High says, hey, it's detestable to me. And here I have a problem. And I'm going to speak on it today because today I'm going to date this. Today is Saturday, June the 11th, 2022. And there's something that's going on in the nation today. What's going on in the nation today is Pride Month or Pride Week or Pride Day. So that means that the LGBT and all of the people that are of a different lifestyle persuasion are parading today, and they're marching around the United States today, and it's acceptable. It's now an acceptable norm within the nation to which we're exiled. I'm not mad at them. They can do whatever they want to do. But here's my problem. My problem is that the religious world that are called Christians have a big problem with it. They have a problem with it. As a matter of fact, there was one Christian pastor who said that these people should be shot in the back of the head because they are contagious to society. Well, I want to ask you a question. Then if they should be shot in the head because they're contagious to the society, do you eat pork? Because if you eat pork, then you should be shot in the back of the head because it's the same rule. It's detestable for eating things that are detestable to the Most High as He makes for the other. So you can't have it both ways. You speak out of your head, and you don't know, but maybe you should be shot in the back of your head. You eating piggy, porky pig, and you're eating shrimp and all the detestable things that the Most High said are detestable to you because I created them to clean the ecosystem, to keep the ecosystem clean. But you want to get mad at a human being because I've said he's detestable in his way of life, or I don't like it, I hate it, but you want to accept another. You can't have it both ways. So here we have. Now Yahweh said to Moshe, see, he has to have a vessel to speak through. Yahweh said to Moshe, say to the people of Israel, you are not to eat the fat of bulls, sheep, and goats. Well, there's a reason for not eating fat. The reason for not eating fat is it's not digestible in the tract. It will clog up things in your digestive tract and in your system. So the Most High is telling us what? How to be healthy. And one of the reasons we're not healthy is because we have failed to follow His dietary laws. The prohibition to consume the blood of any animal. You are not to eat any kind of blood, whether from birds or animals, in any of your homes. Whoever eats any blood will be cut off from the people. Well, it's interesting that the body of humans is made of the same consistency as the bodies of animals. They bleed. And when they die, their skin and all their inner parts that make them life go back to dust. So man is just as much in the animal life as animals are. But there's a guy across the street that said, except you drink my blood and eat my flesh, you have no life in you. And even though it's a metaphor or an allegory that he's presenting, it violates the principle of Torah that says we're not to eat any kind. What I do? Back. We're not to consume any kind of blood, whether it's real or whether it's posed as a allegory or a metaphor to something. You can't open your mouth and violate the principles and the protocol that the Most High has established for us. You can't do that. And once again, what do we have? We have a golden rule that's in Devarim chapter number 13 in the Hebrew Bible, chapter 12, verse 29 to the last verse in the Greek Bible that says, you are not to add or subtract from anything from these words that I'm giving you today. So we have that golden rule. We can't change the principles that the Most High has established. Now, Vayikra 11:4 says not to eat non-kosher animals. You are not to eat those that only chew the cud or only have a separated hoof. For example, the camel, the coney, and the hare are unclean. Now, rabbit. See, we go rabbit hunting. Hare's rabbit. Let's go rabbit hunting. Well, you're not supposed to eat hare. You're not supposed to eat rabbit. Are unclean for you because they chew the cud but don't have a separate hoof. While the pig is unclean for you because although it has a separate and complete hoof divided, it does not chew the cud. What is it? You are not to eat. You're not to eat. But what are we going to do for Christmas? What are we going to do for Easter? What are we going to do for Thanksgiving? All these all these pagan holidays. They go, we're going to have ham on the table. It's summertime. What are we going to do? We're going to have a barbecue. What are we going to barbecue? We're going to barbecue some pig. But the Most High says what? You are not to eat it. So guess what, Hebrew Israel? We don't do what the Most High tells us not to do. Vayikra 11:9. To examine the signs of the kinds of fish should be to distinguish between kosher and non-kosher. Of all the things that live in the water, you may eat those. Anything in the water that has what? Fins and scales. So now, does shrimp have fins and scale? Does lobster have fins and scale? No. Do oysters have fins and scale? No. So does catfish have fins and scale? No. You know? So things in the water that don't measure up to what this is, we are not supposed to eat. The nations can eat anything they want to eat. And one of the things that you really have to know is that our ancestors who came out of the continent of Africa before and when they lived there in peace and harmony with them, we didn't know anything about eating this kind of trash. We learned all of this in exile. We learned all of this in exile. The Europeans gave us this trash. And there is an interesting article that I picked up and it talks about the influence of the black church in America. And the black church in America has an influence, and it was for a purpose. But the problem is that what we learned in slavery from Massa, we incorporated as our own, embellished it, and made it ours. But the principle, the foundation is Eurocentric and it's idolatrous and it's hard. You know, the Most High asked me a question yesterday, and I was driving. He says to me, how difficult is it for people who have been told a lie all of their life to acquiesce to truth? How hard is that? If you've been told a lie all of your life from people that you trusted, and somebody comes along and exposes the lie, it's hard for you to accept that truth because this is, let's take a classic example. A person grows up in their house believing that so-and-so in the house is their paternal mother and their paternal father. Okay? And they grow up. They're grown people. They're 25, maybe they're 30 years old. And somebody comes to them and says, those are not your real parents. And you go like, what you talking about, Rufus? That's all I know. Well, those aren't your real parents. Here, I'm going to give you evidence of your birth and information that's germane to your birth. That's not your real father. What do people have? They have a hard time accepting that truth. And in most cases, they won't accept that truth, as true as it may be. Well, that's the same way with the Most High's word. The lie has been told so long that it's difficult to get people to acquiesce to what the Most High is saying to us to do. That's the hard part. So, eating things out of the ecosystem that live in the water are germane to understanding that we can eat things that has fins and scales. If it doesn't have fins and scales, guess what? What we don't know that we don't eat it. Now, when you go out to a restaurant and you eat and they have fish, you need to ask them, what kind of fish is this? You got an iPhone, look it up. If it doesn't have fins and scales, then you say, well, no, can't eat that. Okay? Why? Because we are Hebrew Israel and we follow the dietary laws of the Father. The prohibition to eat non-kosher fish. So here we have. But everything in the seas, Vayikra 11, and the rivers without both fins and scales, of all the small water creatures and of all the living creatures in the water, is detestable. I hate it. I don't like it. It's a detestable thing for you. And you should hate it. Yes, these will be detestable for you. You are not to eat their meat, and you are to detest their carcasses. Whatever lacks fins and scales in the water is detestable for you. So he repeats himself. So we know that what he's telling us is true. So we ask him, have to ask the question, is this true? Well, yeah, who said it? The Most High said it. So it's true. Well, Peter said to rise, Peter, slay and eat. Well, he wasn't talking about food. And then the other text said we're supposed to eat all foods, with and giving thanksgiving for the Most High has sanctified. He hasn't. So now you're going to tell me that he's lied because you don't know what food is. The Most High knows what food is, and this is his list that he's given us here in the book of Vayikra. Birds. Now he deals with birds. We got animals, we got fish, we got birds. The following creatures of the air are to be detestable to you. They are not to be eaten. They are a detestable thing. The eagle, the vulture, the ostrich, the kite, various kinds of buzzards, the various kinds of ravens, the ostrich, the screech owl, the seagull, and various kinds of hawks are not edible. They're not food. The owl, the cormorant, the great owl, the horned owl, the pelican, the barn owl, the stork, the herons, the hoopie, the bat, the winged swarming creatures that go on all fours are detestable thing to you. You're not supposed to eat those. Now we find Eurocentric people, they eat all this kind of stuff. And other nations eat all this kind of stuff, but Israel, it's not food for us. So here's what we're not going to do. Well, you need to sample this. What's in it? What's in it? No, I can't eat that. I can't eat that. And you have to show. Well, you should try. No, I shouldn't. I should stick with the dietary law that the Most High. Because the first time, if I know this, and the first time I cross it and don't do it, something bad's going to happen to me. Let me give you an example of something. Okay. When I first started teaching Torah, I got to admit, it was a difficult transition. And I tried to dance around. The issues that I was reading. And I remember we went to dinner to what's the fish place on Fulton Avenue? Red Lobster. We went to the Red Lobster. Used to love to go to Red Lobster. Go to Lobster and get the captain's platter. Now on the captain's platter, they have about 3 different kinds of scampi, and they have lobster, and they have crab legs. Okay, beautiful plate, just a beautiful, scrumptious plate. And so I ordered that, and now I'm in my elementary stage of teaching Torah. Okay, I haven't quite got it yet, but I know that I'm not supposed to be eating this. I know that I'm not supposed to be eating, but you know what? I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat. So the scampi was, nice. It was in garlic scampi, with drawn butter, and it was fried, and you know how they fry shrimp, and that was on my plate. So I'm going. I'm just enjoying myself, and all of a sudden, something hit me right in my stomach. And my stomach started to knot. Now I'm still fresh. I'm still fresh off of not eating pork, and I'm still fresh off all this. But something happened in my stomach, and the Most High spoke to me while I'm in Red Lobster. He says, "You know you're not supposed to eat that." And I go, I know. And my stomach got a little tighter, a little tighter, and I said, "Okay," I stopped. You see, now now that I've been doing this since 2007, if I put a piece of pork in my mouth intentionally, it would not go well with me. Another little story, we'll get back to it. Sister Mary and I went on a vacation. We were invited by one of our congregant members to go stay in one of the resort places in Monterey. So we're in Monterey, and at this particular hotel that we were staying at, they had a restaurant on site. So we're going there for dinner. Now I'm knowing, okay, that I don't eat pork. So I tell them I don't eat pork. But I saw on the menu spare ribs. Okay. So I asked the question, are these beef ribs? And the gentleman said, well, yeah, I think so. I think so. So I'm not thinking. I'm not thinking. I'm really not thinking. So they bring Sister Mary and I out this plate, and it has ribs on it. And I'm not thinking. I'm really not thinking. I'm eating, and I'm going, it's got gristle in it. And I'm going like, these aren't rib bones. So now I said, hey, I asked you specifically if these were beef ribs and you brought me out pork. I don't eat pork. Man, you should have seen them scrambling around trying to save their life, because they just knew for sure I was getting ready to either have a tantrum or they was going to get sued. Point being is that we learn. We learn. Give me another story. My son and I, my oldest son and I, we were out for dinner at a Mexican restaurant. This is funny. We were out to dinner at a Mexican restaurant. So I ordered, I always order enchiladas, and I either get beef, chicken, or cheese enchiladas with the rice and the beans. So I didn't ask them. I forgot to ask them if the beans had pork in them. So I'm sitting there at the table and I'm eating. And I'm going like, man, I said, these are good beans. And my oldest son he says, Dad, yeah, they're good. They're cooked with pork. I go, oh my gosh, I'm eating. Oh man. And I felt so bad. I said, what's the point? Sometimes you're not thinking, but you have to learn how to think about the things that the Most High is telling you. Now, it wasn't cooked with pork, but it was cooked with the lard of the pork, which is the same difference. I got to admit, it tasted good. But the Most High cleaned my palate. So now when I go in, I said, are these beans, are these vegetarian beans? Are they cooked with pork? And the safest place when you're going to go eat Mexican, eat the black beans, because they don't cook them with any pork. But now, getting back to this. So these are things that the Most High has defined as detestable as. 11, to examine the signs of locusts to distinguish between kosher and non-kosher. Now, you know that locusts are edible. You just have to figure out which ones they are. Now, I'm not eating no locusts. But my father used to coin a word. He said, what did he used to say? He said, uh, uh, he used the phrase, it's hard to make a monkey eat red pepper unless he's hungry. So the issue is here, I'm not eating no locusts unless I'm hungry, and that's the only thing that's edible, and I'm going to be going, eh. But here, verse 21, except that all the winged swarming creatures that go on all fours, you may eat those that have jointed legs above their feet, enabling them to jump off the ground. Specifically, of these you may eat the various kinds of locusts, grasshoppers, katydids, and crickets. But other than that, all winged swarming creatures have 4 feet are detestable thing for you to eat. And you know, I've watched them on television. They're kind of crunchy, but I'm not eating no locusts. 11, 24 to 28, animals that make you unclean. The following will make you unclean. Whoever touches the carcass of them will be unclean until evening. And whoever picks up any part of their carcass is to wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Every animal that has a separated but incompletely divided hoof or that doesn't chew the cud is unclean for you. Anyone who touches them will be unclean. So now we're talking about animals that we're dealing with that are unclean. So I can't go out on the farm and go, oh, he's such a nice piggy. No, now I'm unclean. And you know, some people got old pigs for pets. Hebrew Israel can't do that. Whatever goes on its paws among all animals or go out on all fours is unclean for you. Whoever touches its carcass will be unclean until evening. And whoever picks up its carcass is to wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. These are unclean for you. Now, the Most High has given us some specific instruction about what's clean and what's not clean. And now we in verses 11 through chapter 11 verses 29 through 38, he says, observe the laws of purity caused by the 8 insects. Now, I didn't put them up here. You can go to Vayikra chapter 11 verses 29 through 38. You can read them and you can see what's there that the Most High is speaking about that causes us to be impure. Verse 39 of chapter 11, observe the laws of impurity caused by dead beasts. If an animal of any kind that you are permitted to eat dies, whoever touches its carcass will be unclean until evening. A person who eats meat from that carcass or carries its carcass is to wash his clothes. It will be unclean until evening. Now, we already know that he's given the law of us not eating tariff, that is, things that are dead, that we've come across that are dead. We're not supposed to eat that. So the idea of also touching that makes us unclean. Now, what are the things you're learning? What are the things you're learning? And if we go back into these laws of impurity, you will find that as you read them, the Most High has a problem with this. He has a problem with dead and death. He has a problem with that. Dead and death are things to him that causes us, when touching them, causes us to be unclean. He is an Elohim of the living. He is not an Elohim of the dead. And that which is dead, it bothers him. Therefore, he gives us these laws that are germane to how we as a people are to remain clean before him. 1141, not to eat non-kosher creature that crawl on the ground. We've talked about this. Any creature that swarms on its ground is a detestable thing. It is not to be eaten. Whatever moves on its stomach, goes on all fours, or has legs. All creatures that swarm on the ground, you are not to eat them because they are detestable. I hate them. And 43, eating creatures that live in the water other than kosher fish, which we've talked about already. You're not to make yourself detestable of any of these swarming, crawling creatures. Do not make yourself unclean with them. Do not defile yourselves with them. So we've kind of talked about that already also. But he gives us the issues, and then he repeats the issues as he goes through because he wants us to understand. Do not eat non-kosher maggots. Now, if he's telling us not to eat non-kosher maggots, then that means there must be some kosher maggots. But guess what? I ain't neither one. I ain't neither one. Ain't gotta worry about me for that. For I am Yahweh Eloheka. Therefore consecrate yourselves and be holy, for I am holy. And do not defile yourselves with any kind of swarming creature that moves along the ground. Now, here he talks about to observe the laws of impurity caused by childbirth in chapter 12. Tell the people of Israel, if a woman conceives and gives birth to a boy, she will be unclean for 7 days with the same uncleanness as in Nida, when she is having her menstrual period, but if she gives birth to a girl, she will be unclean for 2 weeks as in her Nida, and she is to wait another 60 days to be purified from her blood. Now, this is an interesting mitzvah, this one right here. I remember in the Christian church that I was born in, the young ladies would have babies. And my mother, who was the first lady, because my father was the pastor, she made sure that the young ladies that had babies did not come out until a certain period of time. And since she was the 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 first lady of the congregation, when she heard, oh, Sister Holman, so and so went to the grocery store, to get everybody's business. Oh, ring, 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 ring. I heard you was out. You supposed to be in the house, and blah 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 blah. You don't, and please don't come to church. Well, where'd they get that from? Where'd they get that from? Well, it's interesting that the Christian church can go into our Hebraic writings and pull out what they feel is convenient for them to use. But the rest of them, remember, we're not supposed to do. So now this is the issue of childbirth. 12:3, the obligation to circumcise all males on the 8th day of birth. On the 8th day, the baby's foreskin is to be circumcised. We've talked about this before. And one of the things parents want to do for your young boys and your young boys is you want them to be circumcised when they are young. Okay? You don't want them to be circumcised when they get to be grown men. That's not a good thing for the male. Get it done when they are children. And this is a mitzvah of the Most High. Vayikra chapter 15 and verse 16, observe the laws of impurity, of a seminal emission, a regular ejaculation with normal semen. If a man has a seminal emission, he is to bathe his entire body in water. He will be unclean until evening. Any clothing or leather on which there is any semen is to be washed with water. It will be unclean until evening. Now, what are these? These are moral cleanliness, laws of cleanliness. So you were telling me we're not supposed to do this? Come on, people. Doesn't make any sense. And how How does anything in here that I've stated so far speak death to you? While there is a word of faith minister who has taught his people that following the laws of Moses will cause death, will bring death to you. You're not supposed to because you will die. Well, yeah, if you were in the land, if we're in the land under the auspices of the Most High and under the governance of Torah in the land, and you do something voluntarily with it, yeah, you'll die. But in this day that we're living in, you're not going to die. The Most High has given us grace, but there is an expectation that when you come to know something, that you should live by it. So this is a mitzvah. This is a law. Okay. So what are you going to do? You're going to tell your young man, well, you can go out and have as much sex as you want to, and you can have all the seminal ejaculated emissions in it, right? But you don't have to bathe yourself. You don't have to. Come on, is that real? Is that right? That's nasty. That's nasty. But we're not under the law. Come on, people. Let's understand something within and understand what the Most High has given us. The obligation to bathe after sexual relations. If a man goes to bed with a woman and has sexual relations, both are to bathe themselves in water. They will be unclean until evening. So, he's given us things that are germane to what? Our health, our bodies, and what is right. Moral. It's morally right. It's nasty. And that's our conclusion of today, what we're going to present. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a book out that's called In Defense of the Messiah. This book can be purchased on Amazon. It's a good read for you. It helps you understand the nature of what's real and true compared to that which is not. Also, we have our podcast. You can download our podcast. It's on Podbeam. It's on iPod. It's on, I think it's on all the places where you can get a podcast. You can find, and it's called Hebrews in Exile. If you dial down, you'll get that, and you'll be able to listen to our teachings in a podcast form. Well, I want to say shalom to you, and I want to thank you for your time today. I hope that you have learned something that is beneficial to your understanding and will help you to realize that the mitzvahs of the Most High are the reason why the melanated man is in this exile that he's in and suffering so badly under the auspices of the nations to which he has been sent, because the Most High said it's because we would not obey or follow these mitzvahs. So I want to say to you, until we meet again next time, Yeberekaka, Yahweh, V'yishmereka, Ya'er Yahweh Panav Aleka, V'kanuka, Yasa Yahweh Panav Aleka, V'yasham Laka Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine on you and show you his favor. May Yahweh lift up his face to you and give you peace. Shalom.